That's the nature of light. It's going to change us. The second thing is there's a position of the light, which is in verse 15. A number of years ago, I had a friend at WZZD, and you know what? I had their names this morning driving in, and has now fled me. He was a station manager. They did music together back in the 80s. She was a really incredibly gifted artist. Have you ever seen the Christian CD, City on a Hill? That whole series? That's her artwork. She now has a gallery in Nashville where she sells hundreds of these different types of paintings that is folk art. But I always think of that whenever I think of this verse. That beautiful representational Jerusalem that she painted in the muted sepia tones and stuff. And you see, we are a city on a hill, a lamp on a lampstand. We can't be ashamed of who we are. Now, you think I'm bold. You think I'm noisy. And yeah, I'm a noisy mouthpiece for God. I get myself in trouble on a regular basis for opening my mouth. But my nature should be shy. I'm a coward. I hate to deal with confrontation. I'd rather be a hermit and run and hide. My nature is get a Jeep, get a pair of jeans, a cabin in the woods, and not have any touch for man except for going down to local Starbucks to get my fix of coffee. And then quickly to usher myself away from the crowds. But it's the duty of the church to stand out, not for prominence, but for the sake of spreading the gospel to a light of the dark world. You're the church. Do you hear that? You are the church. Ain't this building, certainly isn't me. I shared during the welcome time of some of the things that we've done. We've done some amazing stuff as a church. But it all comes down to you living it. You being the light. Jesus proceeded here to show his hearers that they were given the opportunity to hear and participate in the gospel. It's not because of their place of birth, it's because it was the way that they looked. God was blessing them with the gospel so they could be blessing to others. This is tough. We're living in a generation in America where we're living a pluralistic theology as American Christians. We really are. We have separated the work life and family and all that from the spiritual. We have broken it down over about 500 years where we've gone, where we have separated the work life and the spiritual life to just the work life is the 5 days of the week, then there's that selfish me time, and then there's the Sunday time for Jesus. And the Sunday time for Jesus in the last 50 years is going for, we're not going to do any work on Sunday, we're going to hang out, we're going to fellowship, we're going to go out to lunch on Sunday, we're going to do 2 services, we're going to really worship God too, where God, you've got my 1 hour. And oh, by the way, better have something to entertain my kids because I just want to be me and Jesus for an hour. Better be really cool worship. You got 22 minutes, Pastor, I'm out of here. That's how the American Christianity has lived for the last 35 years. Here's the thing about this light. If a light is burning on a candlestick, if it's sitting there, if it's elevated to a presence of prominence, when's it not going to be radiating in the presence of the prominence? Your life isn't secular. There is no such thing for the believer in Christ of secular living. It's all sacred. Jesus said that you would do all things unto me with excellence. What does that mean? Does that mean, okay, you can't compartmentalize your life. It's either all in or all hell. There's no gray area. You're either saying, I am living for Christ in every area of my life, or screw God. Most Christians live whatever they live at their work life What do they live as their family life? Selfish little corner of my playtime. Like a pie chart. In reality, for us to get to the place of our personal experience where we are truly a beacon of light to the world, it's constant. Every area where you go, it shows up. When I say that, when you've been out in the work life and people come up to you and say, there is something different about you. What is it? It's because no matter how fractured and screwed up and messed up that you are, that light is shining. And people are sitting back saying, there's something different about it. I know he's weird. I know he's broken. I know he yells at his kids. I know he loses his temper, but there's something different about him. What is it? The light. The point is you have to recognize that it's there in that presence. And the fact is you have to submit to it and say, I'm going to serve you, Lord. Don't waste the candle that God's given you. Point 3, radiance of light. Verse 16. How does the light radiate? Do we go up to somebody and just tell them? Do we wham, jam, track 'em, man? No. No. It is not. Okay, we have taken the art of evangelism and made it into this weird sort of hillbilly Jesus thing. We have like really messed it up. It's not what it's about. It's a natural outflow of who you are in Christ. If you're loving and serving and blessing people, that's why I strongly recommend, if you read anything in the first 3 months of this coming year, read The Celtic Way by J.L. Hunter. It's the Celtic way of evangelism. Read the life of St. Patrick, because in his life, the manner in which he has created church back in the centuries where he was alive, and his followers, that methodology, how they lived their lives, how they worked out their daily Christian experience, taking the sacred into the secular, reached every heathen tribe known to man. The Vikings were reached for Christ because of that manner, where they went out and lived among them, did life. They allowed the light to shine. There's a story of Clarence Hall, who was a newsman, a writer during World War II. He was traveling with the troops in Okinawa, yeah, I'm going to butcher this one, 1945. And his jeep driver, they were traveling, came upon this small town where it just stood out in the midst of this Japanese culture as a Christian community. He wrote that we had seen other villages, all down on their heels and despairing. By contrast, this one shone like a diamond in the dung heap. Everywhere we were greeted by smiles and dignified bows. Proudly, the old men showed their spotless homes, their terraced fields, their storehouses, their granaries, and their prize sugar mill. Hall said that there were no jails. There were no stories of public rudeness or drunkenness. That divorce was unknown in this village. And then he found out the reason why, that prior to the war there had been an American missionary for some 30 years sowing seed in that community. While he's in that village, he led 2 elderly townspeople to Christ. Now hear this now, 30 years of investment. He reached 2 elderly people for Christ.
Praise God.
2. So Jesus ain't in numbers. He left them prior to the war with just a Japanese Bible. These new believers studied the scriptures and started leading their fellow villagers to Jesus. Hall's jeep driver said he was amazed at the difference between this village and the others around it. He remarked, so this is what comes out of a Bible and a couple of old guys who want to live like Jesus. Wasn't the missionary, it was 2 old guys. 2 old guys with the Bible. You see, Jesus on a regular basis rebuked the religious people because they were not letting their light shine.